Today, we're looking at a blue ink by Atramentis, Steel Blue. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. And if you like videos like that, I would invite you to subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram, and there's timestamps down below so that if you are in a hurry, you can skip around. But if you got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Jinhao 51A with a fine nib, used it to write for a day, and wrote my notes for this video. In order to have some standardization in my writing samples, I always use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it came in a vial that looks something like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Now the extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub. It has no feather spread, halo sheen, but very nice shading that's going on. Quick starts dark, gets lighter and gets darker. Brown starts dark and works its way lighter. Fox gets a light at the top of the F, dark at the bottom of the F, lighter into the O, and dark into the X. Very nice shading with this ink. 13 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, not quite as dark as the stub. It has no feather spread, halo sheen, and it offers the same kind of shading that we got with the extra fine. Now the word quick is entirely dark. Brown starts very dark and at the W gets a little bit lighter in shade. Over starts a little bit lighter and then gets darker. It's just that the color variation isn't as wide as what we saw in the extra fine, but it's still very much there. 22 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both, if you're looking far left to far right, does show some, not tremendous color variation, but some, and we do get it. Tomoe River. No bleeding, normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. 17 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, not quite as dark as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. 30 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show no color variation. We didn't expect it, and we didn't get it. And then Rhodia. No bleeding, no ghosting. That coming through is on the scrubby where I put it on stupid thick and probably scratched through the page. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Now the extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, but it does offer some nice shading. Again, the left of the Q is darker than the right of the Q. It gets lighter into the word, darker at the K. Brown starts dark and works its way light. Very nice. Over starts light, works its way dark. 14 seconds to dry. Now the medium is darker than the extra fine, about the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. 24 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine, far left to far right, does show some color variation. We do get some up there. The medium shows none, and we got none. I agree with Vita. I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And there's this very light gray at the bottom that's pushing its way up into a very nice blue that gathers across the top. Now that I think is gathering across the top. That's not a different blue forming that dark line. The one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water, and that gray is really gathering at the bottom, really not moving its way up. Only the blue is moving up, which makes me feel that the gray is going to be a stick-around element, but not so much the blue. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, there's a slight bit of bloom that occurs at the top of the lowercase h, but I think this would overall be perfectly safe to use in a note-taking situation if you go back and highlight. Water is not doing an incredible amount getting rid of it. It's only moving some of the darkest tones, but not all of it. pen flush is doing much more than the initial picture would make you think. It's really starting to break this ink up. Look at the right side of what's going on, and you can start to see the ink being broken up, and it will come completely off the page. It will come completely out of your pen with the pen flush. It just needs more than 30 seconds. 1/3 bleach solution, although there's no reason to use it to clean this out of your pen, does completely remove it from the page, but you don't need it to get it out of your pen. I test viscosity or flow with a thing called a tilt test. I'll link it somewhere down below or up in the cards. Now, for the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. The Atramentis Steel Blue has a viscosity of 2.18, making it normal. The low side, but still normal. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples, and for the inks I've tested, I found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. The Atramentis Steel Blue has an average dry time of 20 seconds, making it again normal, but this time the high side of normal. Instead of finding inks that look like the Atramentis Steel Blue, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page, and you can never go wrong, almost never, with a nice black. I chose Diamine's Quartz Black. The second writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia, life paper, and Franklin-Christoph. Here we're looking at the yellow Rhodia to see what kind of tone change we go through for using yellow paper instead of blue paper. And this blue becomes very turquoise, leaning green, which is kind of what you would expect if it's opaque. And this ink, I believe, to be more translucent than opaque. So this is definitely getting an effect on it. So it's not a really saturated ink causing that. Life paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Now the extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade, 12 seconds to dry. Medium is quite a bit darker than the extra fine. It's actually a little darker than the stub. It has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 18 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we didn't get any color variation. Last up is Franklin-Christoph paper. Now I put some for some bleed spots because we see just a couple dots coming through, but not really a whole lot. It doesn't stop you from using the back of the page, and nowhere near touching the page underneath, and no real ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Now the extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, 8 seconds to dry. The medium is darker than the extra fine, same tone as the stub. No feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 12 seconds to dry. Scrubby shows us no color variation, and we didn't get any, and that is all that I have for the writing sample. So what do I think of the Atramentis Steel Blue? This one that they repackage also as Bonnie Parker. So there's a historical context, and there's a lot of inks that I really enjoy for their historical context. Now, this one does have a touch of shading every now and then. The blue itself is not the blue for me. It is not bad. This is very well behaved. I do like that they put inks out with a historical name, even if it is a rebottled of another ink they have. I really do enjoy that they do that. It's something a little bit different about the ink that's in your pen. So what nib and pen will give the best writing experience with this ink? I find that a medium flow, fine nib gives the nicest color with touches of shading that can show up from time to time. I put out a new ink review every single day, so that if you're not already subscribed, I'm going to remind you, go ahead and subscribe. Thanks for watching.